What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, I wanted to talk about quarterback Trey Lance a little bit today. I want to discuss the draft prospect that could potentially be a Lions draft pick this offseason. So let's get it started.
I got to shout out DoseOfDion, man, because it was actually the first time I went live on YouTube. And, guys don't know, DoseOfDion, he put out a lot of good content for the Detroit Lions.
Welcome, everybody, to another video. Glad you guys are here. And yes, we're talking about some Trey Lance, the quarterback out of North Dakota State. We have not talked about Trey Lance at all so far. And I wouldn't call this a draft prospect video because it's not going to be like me showing like that many video clips of him because, well, because copyright reasons for one. But that video will be for a later date. However, I did want to talk about Trey Lance a little bit because we have not discussed Trey Lance really at all. And I think it's important that we do. So I wanted to talk about, I put together a pros and cons list, things that I like about his game, things that I don't like. I have watched a lot of Trey Lance and I will watch even more of these quarterbacks. Probably go back and watch Justin Fields. Probably go back and watch, Zach Wilson, these guys, because now it's looking like the Lions, there's a very good chance they're going to draft a quarterback this year. I don't know where they're going to take a quarterback, but there's a very good chance that they do. And we know Matthew Stafford is going to get traded. Now, I saw this is the latest I've seen on the Matthew Stafford trade, is 1/3 of the league's teams have called about Matthew Stafford. That means about 10 to 11 teams have already called about Matthew Stafford. 1/3 of the league. Like, what? Already? Like, dang, man. Okay, yeah, a lot of teams are interested in Matthew. I get it. I definitely get it, though. He's very talented. So, the Lions, they're probably going to draft a quarterback this year. Maybe not, but they probably will. So, I want to talk about Trey Lance. Now, Trey Lance, not my favorite quarterback prospect. I'll come out and say that. I do like Zach Wilson a lot. I don't think it's super realistic we land a guy like Trevor Lawrence. I know the thought is maybe we give Stafford to Jacksonville. He can work with Darrell Bevell, because there was that rumor that came out that said that Matthew Stafford would have stayed if Darrell Bevell would have stayed. The reason I never reported that is because I think it's Justin Rogers, the Lions writer. He came out and basically disagreed with it completely because his sources said otherwise, that wasn't the case. So I didn't report it because, there's two differing sides there. I know Ian Rappaport said in a little interview that, yeah, Matthew Stafford may have stayed if Darrell Bevell was there. So I don't know if that's true or not. We're not sure. But if it was true, then yeah, that's where the idea of potentially giving him to Jacksonville for their first pick in the draft, which I don't think there's any way Jacksonville gives up the first pick in the draft. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen that before. I don't know if I've ever seen that before. But it happens. I don't think it happens. But anyways, let's talk about Trey Lance a little bit today. So like I said, I think Zach Wilson's probably my favorite right now. If I have to list, if I did a quarterback big board, number one would be Zach Wilson, just because realistically, I don't think Trevor Lawrence could be even on there. Number one would be Zach Wilson, and then I'm still trying to figure out the rest, to be honest with you. But Trey Lance is an interesting one because I look at him as a very risky draft pick. I understand every draft pick's risky, especially in the top 10, because if you miss on it, well, dang, you missed out on the top 10 pick. But for me, I look at a guy like Trey Lance and I say, okay, there's a lot to like here physically, but there's also a lot of concerns with his game. He's very inexperienced, super raw. He has a lot of things he needs to work on, and you would really have to adjust your offense to fit with what Trey Lance does. He played at North Dakota State, so he's playing in the FCS, and he's 6'4", 226 pounds. He's a big dude, all right? He gives me reminders of a lot of different guys. He reminds me sometimes of Ben Roethlisberger, just of his, stature, just of his size. Sometimes of a Taysom Hill with better arm talent. A little bit of Josh Allen at times. Sometimes Cam Newton. A little bit of Lamar Jackson. Like that, I get a feel of many different quarterbacks with Trey Lance. Statistically, they look great. I mean, his stats look incredible. In 2019, he took off. 2018, he only threw one pass. He completed it, though, 100%. But in 2019, he took off. In 2019, he had 28 touchdowns to no interceptions. 67% completion percentage. I mean, just great numbers. But the concern was the level of competition he was playing against. So then in 2020, they get basically a showcase game where you have this one game in 2020 against Central Arkansas. And to me, it looked like maybe he was pressing a little bit, but he looked bad. And it was the last game we've seen. It's the only game we saw of him in 2020. So that's the most recent game in your memory. And he did not look good against Central Arkansas at all. I mean, he was very inaccurate, misplaced a lot of passes, overthrew balls. I mean, it was bad. He basically beat Central Arkansas with his legs, not with his arm, which is, it's still nice because that's one of his biggest strengths. But his passing was bad. It was really bad. And you're saying, man, an NFL quarterback can't be throwing the ball like this. And to me, that's his biggest weakness, is his accuracy, which we'll get into when we look at the pros and cons. So that's a quick little background. Let's take a look at the pros and cons I threw up here. I'm just going to kind of skim through them, just what I wrote down quickly. So starting off with the pros, physical tools, right? He's a very big quarterback. Like I said, that size. He's got the tools. He may have the biggest arm, I think, in this draft that I've seen so far out of any quarterback. To me, has the biggest arm. The dude could just fling it. I mean, he can throw it 60, 70 yards, doesn't even have to step up into it. Reminds me of a younger Stafford in that way. The guy has a cannon for an arm. Quarterback run, play action rollout. It's something that he did a lot at North Dakota State. Quarterback power run. If you're going to the NFL, you don't see that a ton. But if you have Trey Lance, you may have to adjust your offense to that. And also the play action rollout, something they did in North Dakota a lot, using his big arm, rolling out, using his mobility. Play action rollouts are going to be very effective for him in the NFL. I think it also helps him out because it kind of puts every route in front, so he doesn't have to worry about, trying to see the entire field. They're kind of all going the same direction he is, so I think that's a very good play for him. Like I say, he has the huge arm. They look at him like a battering ram because he's very tough to bring down. When he takes off, he's like a running back. All right, he's very difficult to bring down, and he has some top speed. So he turns into a runner, which concerns me sometimes because sometimes I watch him take hits and just not run out of bounds. Like, if you're trying to get first, all right, hey, get the first. I love it. But, like, when you're 30 yards down the field and you, like, take a hit to grab 2 more yards, I love the heart. Don't get me wrong. But it concerns me. Like, man, you're my quarterback. Get out of bounds. Don't be taking those hits. I don't need you to take extra hits. He's very poised to a fault at times. Extremely poised sometimes. So, very calm in the pocket. One thing that concerns me is his time to throw is 2.92 seconds. I haven't seen another quarterback with that high of a time to throw. That wouldn't concern me if it wasn't for how many sacks he takes. So, time to throw, 2.92 seconds. To me, he's extremely slow through his progressions, and I think that's a big reason for that. Also, he gets really comfortable at certain times because he'll have all day in the pocket. But what concerns me is 20% of the time there is pressure, it turns into a sack. I haven't seen another quarterback with that kind of ratio. 20% of the time there's pressure, it turns into a sack. That tells me he's holding on to the ball too long. And that will get fixed in the NFL after taking a couple of hits. That's for sure. But they'll work on that. But that's a big concern. So, poise, calm in the pocket, that's true. Almost to a fault at times. Deep ball placement, I really like his deep ball placement. Don't think it gets talked about a lot. I do like it. I think he's able to place the ball in pretty good spots where usually the defender can't get it, whether that's back shoulder, whatever that may be, where the defender can't get it. And it's very difficult to throw a deep ball accurate. Usually you're just throwing it high and say, hey, go run under it. Most of his passes are high. I like to see more, passes on a line or on a rope deep. But for the most part, I mean, it seems to be in a pretty good position a lot of times. Sometimes I wish, like I said, he put on the rope because it's like 30 yards and he'll kind of float a little bit. It's like, man, the defender's going to get back to that. They don't. But I know in the NFL they could. So it's like, get it to him. Get it to him now because I know you have the arm to do it. 2019 season, of course, statistically just looked great. I list Carson Wentz here as well. Yeah, no, he's not Carson Wentz, but Carson Wentz came from North Dakota State as well, and it's at least promising that, yeah, Carson Wentz hasn't done great, but at least have a quarterback there that came out of it, and he's had some success at times. NFL, particularly in 2017 when he was like an MVP candidate before he got hurt, when they won the Super Bowl with Nick Foles. I mean, at least, he's had some success. So that's good that there's actually like a little bit of, if Carson Wentz is doing better, I think it would help his draft stock. Let me just say that. So I think it's nice that Carson Wentz was able to make it to the NFL and find some success. We'll see how he does in the future. Anthony Lynn. Now, this is probably the biggest point I'm going to bring up here. To me, Anthony Lynn is the biggest factor for the Detroit Lions, and he's a huge factor in a great way. Really, for anybody that we draft, I think Anthony Lynn is going to be a difference maker. I see what Anthony Lynn did with Justin Herbert. I see what he, was part of with Tyrod Taylor, and I think a guy with the experience of Anthony Lynn could be very beneficial to really any draft pick you bring in, but especially a guy like Trey Lance. Because to me, I look at Trey Lance, and we're going to go through the cons. You know what? Let's go through the cons first, and I'll discuss Anthony Lynn. And I ended off with 11.5 average depth. That's a very, very high average depth. I don't think I've seen another quarterback with that either. So he doesn't have a lot of screen yards. He likes to push the ball down the field. Two exciting things. He takes maybe too many sacks based on pressure. So there's things like, things to not like. With the cons, obviously accuracy comes first, especially against Central Arkansas. But what I've noticed is that, yes, his accuracy was way better and his completion percentage was really good in 2019. But, man, I cannot tell you how many times guys were wide open. And guys get open in college, no question. But it seemed like all the time players were just wide open. It wasn't a lot of tight window throws. He actually has the lowest amount of tight window throws of any top quarterback in this year's draft. He doesn't have to throw tight window passes, which is concerning because in the NFL, almost all passes are going to be tight window unless you have a great scheme and you have a lot of great playmakers that can get a lot of separation. There are going to be a lot of tight window throws, and he hasn't been forced to do that. Timing routes, all right? He seems a little off on those at times, especially against Central Arkansas, maybe because that's the lack of just experience, and that'll come around when he starts to get back to it. Tight window throws, like I touched on, progressions. He see him start one way, and he's so slow to get back, where in the NFL, man, you're going to get sacked. You can't wait that long. It's almost like he trusts his ability too much to escape the pocket last second, where you got to get that ball out of your hands. You got to go through your progression. So lock onto his first target, and he takes forever to move on to his next one. We talked about the pressure to sack ratio, his mechanics. That can be off. Sometimes he doesn't step up at the pocket. When he releases it, now I don't know if this will be changed, but he has a little dip to his throw, which is okay, but he also gets the ball pat, all this stuff, and you kind of know when the ball is coming out. It can help defensive backs, linebackers, but you'll see defensive linemen get tips because they kind of know when the ball is coming out. That's why I mentioned dip release. So, look, I love the physical tools and the potential. Like, if I was building a Madden player, right? This is the kind of player I would build, the build I would build. 6'4", 220, can run. big arm. All that's beautiful. But it's like the other things that are extremely important. Going through progressions, reading a defense, tight window passes. Lions fan, I personally wouldn't have a problem, taking a risk on a guy like Trey Lance because I look at Mahomes, I look at Josh Allen. Allen was actually a 7th pick as well. I look at Lamar. I look at these guys that were had a lot of concerns, but they also had big time potential, and it did turn out. But at the same time, I think the experience is a big factor. I mean, he's really only started one full season. I mean, if you're being honest, he only had one full season. And there's not a lot of great names there. You got Brock Osweiler, Mitch Trubisky, Mark Sanchez. I mean, there's not a lot of good names that have only played one full season in college football. They've only started one season in college football. I know he had the 2020, which is technically, because he played the one game, that's all he had. But, I mean, honestly, okay, he doesn't have tons of experience. Trey Lance, I think he could start in that role, but you would have to just adjust your offense to based on his skill set, and you have to be willing to take the lumps as you go because he's not going to come out and be incredible right away. I mean, I don't expect he would. I mean, if he puts up Herbert numbers, awesome. I don't expect that to happen. I expect him to take his lumps as a quarterback, but just, it would take time and he'll develop. But what I've seen with some other quarterbacks that have had that risk and high ceiling is that they've been able to hit at times. So obviously if you can hit on that, awesome. So I wouldn't have an issue with taking Trey Lance. One of the biggest things that I talk about is I want a leader. Now, when it comes to being a leader, I've only heard good things about him. I mean, I haven't really heard any bad things off the field. On the field, I hear that, he's the leader of the team. I also hear that, he was a big part of trying to get the 2020 season to happen for college football. So he was really a leader for North Dakota State. So I haven't heard anything bad about him, which is good. I don't like hearing all the, off the field nonsense that goes on with my quarterbacks, right? I want to be professional. And I feel a lot of professionalism that comes with Trey Lance. I think the run game is going to be super important. I mean, look at the Ravens, right, with Lamar. The last couple of years, they've averaged 5.5 yards per carry. And the running backs are doing a lot of that. I mean, yes, Lamar will help, and Trey Lance will help our rushing attack statistically. But when you have Mark Ingram running 5 yards per carry, when you have Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, they're doing their things, it helps you out a lot. That's what the Lions need. They need to make that happen. And if you can get a run game going with Trey Lance, I think you can find some success. I think you definitely could. And it's someone that you can work and build around because he has the things that, once again, you can't teach. And he also has some issues, let's be honest here, going through progressions, reading defense, like Justin Fields does. Fields has those same issues. And the exciting thing here is with Trey Lance, opposed to some other quarterbacks, is that he has such limited amount of experience. They're thinking, man, how high can this ceiling really be? I mean, he's already declared for the draft, but you can make a case he should go back to college. How high could this ceiling really be if a lot of these issues that I personally see, I also see with a guy like Justin Fields. Now, maybe the competition level isn't the same, but it also just tells you how high can this ceiling be with a guy like Trey Lance? I mean, what's the chance that we land an absolute monster here? The perfect guy to have sit behind a quarterback. But in our case, that may not be the case. It may be start him day one. So let's just say, for example, the Lions drafted Trey Lance, right? Let's say the Lions drafted Trey Lance. What would they do with him? Well, I think he could start day one. And here's how I think it would work. This is why I bring up Anthony Lynn. Anthony Lynn, what he did with Justin Herbert last season, all right, with the success that Herbert was able to have. And I think this helps out any rookie quarterback. But with a guy like Trey Lance, I see the ability of Anthony Lynn with his experience to adjust based on the quarterback. I almost feel like if we would have hired James Urban, that could have worked really well too because he's worked with Lamar Jackson as his quarterback coach. But when I look at Anthony Lynn with his experience, I think that's a big reason the Lions brought him in is because he can adjust based on the type of quarterback that he has. If I have Trey Lance is my quarterback, and I'm starting Trey Lance, which I'm fine with. I mean, I look at a guy like Lamar Jackson, right? He took over during the season for Joe Flacco. Didn't play incredibly great. All right, he barely threw the ball, but he was able to have a lot of success because they just played to his strengths, and that's what the offense looked like since. I look at a guy like Lamar Jackson, yeah, he may be one of the kind, but the dude's not accurate. In Pro Bowl, the guy couldn't hit a single target. So they have to adjust their offense based on his play style, playing it like he played in college. All right, you got to set up the play action. Also think you need to do, and yeah, some quarterback design runs, but you have to have a rushing attack. All right, if you don't have a run game with Trey Lance, I think he's going to look really bad. If you have guys dropping into coverage and he turns around and hand it off and you don't go anywhere, you're going to be in big trouble. If with no rushing attack, I think he's going to be in very big trouble because that's not his strong suit. His game is using his physical tools, rolling out, using his legs, being able to make all the passes. If you had him as your quarterback, you would have to adjust and play like a college, like a North Dakota State type offense with him, which is weird, but teams have done it. They've adjusted to it. But you would have to be willing to make that adjustment. You would have to be willing to become a rushing team, in my opinion. Quarterback runs, those are fine because that's what he likes to do and that's how he's built. I mean, I think for him, if you try to draft him and say, okay, we don't want you to run because we don't want you to get hurt, it's not going to work out because that's what he does. Like that's his, I mean, that might be the thing that he's best at right now is running as a quarterback. So if you don't let him do that because you don't want him to get hurt, he ain't going to look very good, especially early in his career because he hasn't developed enough to be a quarterback that can beat you with the pass, to be a quarterback that can drop back, go through his reads, and beat you with the pass down the field. You have to be able to get things open with the run. You're going to have to be able to let him use his legs. You're going to have to take a huge adjustment to his offense, and I think Anthony Lynn could do that. I look at Tyrod Taylor, the guy had barely 3,000 yards passing. All right, and Tyrod Taylor had his best years when he was working with Buffalo. I look at Justin Herbert. Herbert's a different type of quarterback, but I must believe that to get that kind of production out of Justin Herbert, you had to adjust your offense. I think there was some adjustments towards the offense that Anthony Lynn had to make. And I also look at how much Anthony Lynn's had success rushing the football and how much everybody wants to run the ball. I could see Trey Lance being the Lions draft pick. This is what Darrell Bevel liked to do, is to play action, but we couldn't run the ball well enough. So if you draft Trey Lance, your focus must be getting this run game going. Because I guarantee you, if we don't have a run game that's good in the NFL, if we don't have an above average run game, Trey Lance is going to struggle big time. The issue with Stafford is you put him out there with a team that was awful. That's what you're going to do with any quarterback if you don't focus on something. I feel like the Lions' off-season focus must be fix the run, fix the run, fix the run. Get the run game going. We have pieces here. Let's get it going. Because if you can do that, a guy like Trey Lance all of a sudden looks better. There's so many quarterbacks in the league that look better when they have help on the ground game. Just ask Case Keenum. Just ask Ryan Tannehill. These aren't great quarterbacks. They look so much better. That's the kind of thing you got to do with Trey Lance. Trey Lance could be the pick, just based on Dan Campbell, Anthony Lynn, Deuce Staley. The guys, they want to run the football. The background of Bill Parcells, they want to run the ball. They would be fine with being a power running team. I mean, look what the Patriots had to do this year with Cam Newton. How they adjusted that offense with Newton, right? They let Newton run. They became a pretty run-heavy team. You try to take him out of that and try to be something he's not, he doesn't have a lot of success. Trey Lance is not my top prospect, but if the Lions did draft him, I would have some confidence that a guy in Anthony Lynn could make it work, because he's shown me he can make it work with different types of quarterbacks. Do you think that Anthony Lynn could make it work? I think Anthony Lynn could do really well with any rookie quarterback, which is great. But if it was Lance, I think with what the Lions want to do, it's likely that this could be the Lions draft pick. It's very likely this could be the Lions draft pick. If honestly I had to predict right now what the Lions draft pick would be, and I know it's so difficult and it's far out, I think it would be Trey Lance, based on how the board falls. If we sit at 7, I think Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, and Trevor Lawrence are gone. I think Trey Lance is the Lions draft pick at number 7. I mean, that would be my prediction. I'm not saying that's what I want to happen, but it would be my prediction. So for me, to me, he's definitely not, my top quarterback at all. And there's a lot of things that I'm worried about with this game. But I do have confidence that Anthony Lynn probably could make it work somewhat. So what are your thoughts on Trey Lance? So how do you guys feel about this quarterback out of North Dakota State? Yeah, that's kind of how I feel, man. I just think Anthony Lynn could make it work. But he's got a lot of room to grow. Thank you, Brad, for watching, and I'm out.